Hi squad, welcome back, and dog bless you. I recently guested on the Fluid Voice podcast where I talked a little bit about what I'm going to discuss today. If you haven't subscribed to them yet, I highly recommend doing so. You can find links down in the comment section below. There were a few things touched on in that discussion that I really wanted to revisit in a little bit more detail, mostly because my rambly ADHD brain does better getting to the point when I can edit it to the point. So let's talk about the trans dating taboo. Heed the content warning. Have you heeded? Let's jump in. First things first. Marginalization is a very complicated thing that comes with myriad hurdles for the people being marginalized. One of these is the narrative of being undateable. This frequently overlaps with racism, but in both people of color and white people alike, it often gets tied in with being fat, being disabled, being trans, or being any combination thereof. It probably goes without saying that I am not the person you should be turning to when it comes to conversations about racism or the experiences of fat or disabled people in the dating world. I just needed to stress the importance of intersectionality in this conversation and conversations like it, and encourage you to take the narrative of being undateable, as we're going to discuss how it applies to trans people, and examine other venues through which it is assigned to different subsets of the population. One of the ways you can do this is spend time considering both how you assess potential partners and how you regard your own value when it comes to romantic or intimate relationships. Now then, to focus on the topic at hand, why are trans people so often considered undateable just by virtue of being trans? I would argue that there are a number of different reasons for this, but to put all of them very simply under one umbrella, it's transphobia. Hold on. Take a breath. If you comment on this video saying that it's not transphobic to have a preference, all you're going to be doing is communicating to me that you didn't take time to actually watch the video and listen to what I was saying. In fact, let's up the stakes and say that if you do that, you are officially declaring yourself a cotton-headed ninny muggins, so the choice is yours here. What I'm getting at is, while I delve in here, make sure that you really listen to what I'm saying and not what you think I'm saying based on your preconceptions. So let's try again. I am not saying that it is transphobic to not want to date a trans person. I am saying that the overall negative attitude towards trans people in the dating world comes from cultural transphobia. Everything from casual jokes made at our expense in popular media to the way trans identities, particularly trans feminine identities, have been tied in with fetishism and are considered inherently sexual by their nature. There is baggage in our very existence, social, political, and beyond, and that message isn't just internalized by cis people, it's internalized by trans people as well. That is to say, transphobia is not simply a direct line from cis people to trans people. It is a problem across the board. Nearly all trans people have received the message in different ways that we are inherently less desirable and less worthy of love than cis people are. This not only comes from culture at large, but also from within our own community. In the latter case, it tends to come from pretty understandable intentions, usually stressing the importance of staying safe or sharing negative experiences that someone may have had, because it's just kind of tough to have to carry those around quietly. I don't want to undermine that. But something can come from an understandable place and still perpetuate harm. What I'm trying to point out here is the cycle of reinforcing the negative ideas that dating while trans is always a trial, and that trans people are just inherently less desirable as romantic partners. We become the stories we tell ourselves, whether those come from outside sources or our own self-perception. And no, I'm not saying that all you need is a positive attitude and then everything's gonna be sunshine and rainbows. There are very real problems that face many, many trans people, and I do not want to trivialize those. I just ask that you consider the taboo of transness. How does it make you feel? Does it stir up feelings of aversion? And if so, why? Where are those feelings coming from? Now then, I have said it before, I will say it again, it is not transphobic to not want to date a trans person if you have a genital preference. If you think that most or even many trans people feel this way, I want you to really ask yourself where you got this idea. Did you hear it from actual trans people, or is it something that you just picked up in more general conversations? Be honest. What is transphobic is to say that you're not attracted to trans people, and the transphobia lies in the fact that in saying that, you are stating that all trans people are the same, or at the very least have some kind of identifiably trans characteristic, which simply isn't true. And again, before you dive into the comments section, I'm gonna blow your mind for a second. You have probably been attracted to a trans person before. You just did not know that they were trans at the time. And here is where the difference between preference and transphobia comes in. If you're attracted to someone and then you find out that person is trans and that's a deal breaker for you, that is totally fine. We all have deal breakers that come to light as we learn more about someone. Being trans has things that go along with it that may not be for you. That's okay. However, if you're attracted to someone and then you find out that they're trans and then you try to backpedal and say, yeah, I'm not attracted to you, I was never attracted to you, that is transphobia. Because at that point, it becomes about convincing others and convincing yourself that you were never into them. And why would you need to do that if you didn't think that that person was lesser or shameful by their very existence? This same reasoning applies to the preemptive statement of, I'm not attracted to trans people. I asked this question in my Super Straights video. Why do you need people to know that? I would venture that it's because humans like to signal our compliance with dominant cultural attitudes, and you've internalized the one that trans people are gross. When you feel the need to say, I'm not attracted to trans people, all you're doing is signaling your rejection of trans people for its own sake. But here's where it gets really wild, because I think that there's a little bit more to it than that. Most trans people will tell you that the cis folks who are the most aggressively outspoken about how they would never date us are usually the first ones to slip into our DMs when they think that nobody's looking. We're looking. We see you. This is something that tends to impact trans women and trans feminine non-binary people a lot more. But as a trans man who also dates cis men who tend to be the primary perpetrators on this front, this is a phenomenon I have experienced more than once. The flip side of the conditioned repulsion of trans bodies is the fetishization of trans bodies. The idea that because it's socially unsavory to collude with us, there's some thrill of rebellion in doing so. This is a very real problem that many of us have lived through. So the next thing I'm going to say is, as much for the trans people who might be watching this as it is for the cis people who are watching this. We are not experiments. We are not dirty little secrets. We are not stepping stones in other people's journeys of self-discovery. We are not a fetish, either within ourselves or for people who are looking to consume our identities like some kind of forbidden fruit. We are people. We are regular-ass humans who go grocery shopping and spend too much time on our phones and feel personally attacked by the universe when something gets stuck in a drawer in such a way that the drawer won't open anymore. We are also not responsible for other people's feelings, nor do we owe anything to the people who are attracted to us. Let's pretend for a second that, say, I don't know, being a cat person is a deal breaker for you if you're looking for someone to form a relationship with. If you were to meet someone who caught your interest only to later find out that they're a cat person, would you feel betrayed? Probably not. You might feel disappointed, but you wouldn't necessarily feel lied to, because you recognize that that's just one feature among many that might not work for you, and that that person is under no obligation to signal at every turn that they're a cat person on the off chance that maybe that's a deal breaker for you. That's just silly, because nobody else is responsible for the desires that you assign to them, and this is apparent when you look at just about any other feature. The only reason someone turning out to be trans feels different is because we're told that being trans is different. We're told that trans is an undesirable way to be. So many cis people who are attracted to trans people feel that they're complicit in something underhanded and dirty when they find out. They worry that they'll be judged by other cis people for it. Coming at it from this angle, I can actually understand the discomfort. So I'm not asking you to feel bad here. What I'm requesting is that you examine this reaction. No one, trans or otherwise, owes you anything just because you develop feelings for them. You are not in control of your feelings, but you are absolutely in control of the things that you do because of them. Keep in mind that having an attraction to someone is different from actually being involved with them, because at that point, I actually do think that, yeah, they should probably let you know if they're trans. Just like you should let your potential partners know how you feel about having kids, whether or not that's something you would want. Basically, if someone has a feature that's going to impact the relationship in some way, regardless of what it is, it's something that you should probably share with your potential partners. But having desire for someone and actually being involved with them are two different things. And when you express frustration with trans people for not immediately disclosing the fact that they're trans at your first sign of attraction, you are betraying not only your objectification of trans people, but also your inability to regulate your emotions like an adult. Is that really the image that you want to have? Trans people face an incredible amount of harassment for existing openly. Many of us don't share the details of our identity for safety and no other reason, and this is especially true for trans women. Which reminds me, the narrative about trans people tricking cis people into having sex only to reveal that they're trans when the actual intimate encounter takes place virtually does not happen. That is something that gets trans people killed. Where this does seem to be a common occurrence is pornography that fetishizes trans people. So for the cis people who are out there acting like this is a really, really common occurrence, I can't help but wonder what content they're consuming that would lead them to think this. Once again, first to slide into our DMs. I have a lot more to say on this topic, so I'm going to be following up with part 2 soon. But to close out, I wanted to share a few thoughts on another thing. Just by virtue of being trans on the internet and talking about the things I talk about, I encounter a lot of TERF rhetoric and knee-jerk reactions like, being trans is a delusion. So with these people in mind, I wanted to finish up with a specific question. What are you doing here? I ask that sincerely. Why are you here? Like, you're definitely not going to change my mind. So if it's to try and hurt my feelings, why is that so important to you? To spare you wasting both your time and mine, you should know that comments that are really aggressive in nature and are blatantly transphobic just get deleted because I don't want my viewers to have to read them. For me personally, this really amazing thing happened when I came out, which was the realization that I don't actually care if anyone likes me because I like me. And once I had that security, I stopped feeling threatened by other people just existing authentically. It was honestly a really, really great feeling, and it is one that I wish upon all other people. So if you're here to spread hurt, maybe addressing your own pain is a better use of your time. I promise you, you'll feel better for it. I know I certainly did. You've probably noticed that the sun is creeping in on me. It is baking me in my chair, and I keep having to scooch back from it, so I think I'm gonna end it there. I'm gonna come back to this. I've got a lot more to talk about. I think next time I'm probably gonna go over what it's like to actually date as a trans person, and hopefully dispel some myths surrounding that. Hopefully I'll see you then. And as always, thanks for watching.